Yes, sir. Hello and good morning. Welcome to the BLXCK INK Podcast. My name is Jake Kerr and I am your host of today's 92nd episode of the BLXCK INK Podcast. Thank you for joining me. Firstly, I'd like to formally invite you to the Easter Sunday Sesh, which we are hosting down at Lost Bills on Sunday the 17th of April, which is, of course, this Sunday if you're watching this the day of release, which means you have, 1 or 2 days to get your shit together and get down there. Now, it starts at 5 p.m. and we have all sorts of great reasons to come down and visit us at least for one drink, because the 25th, the 50th and the 75th person to walk in the door is going to score themselves an instant free shirt. Now, it's not a shirt that I'm just going to give you. It is a shirt that you're going to get in the form of a voucher that you can go onto the website and purchase anything you want. Okay, so it's those three people. We're also going to have special commission art pieces up on the wall, which I've got local artists from around the southwestern Peel region to basically create these physical artworks, as in painting a canvas or printing a digital print, or I know one guy's actually working on a reflective piece of material. So this is super interesting and super fun. And basically it's just making these pieces of physical artwork with a black ink theme about them. So they're going to be up on the wall and up for sale, all of them at super affordable prices. That was one of the main things I wanted to keep in mind. And all of the money that gets made from those pieces of art goes to the artist. So it's not even like that's something for me. But come along, have a look, see if you like these artworks. If you do like them, fucking purchase them. You understand? We're also going to have the bespoke black ink cocktail, which Maddie James has so fabulously put together for us, which is, of course, the espresso martini, keeping on brand with the whole black ink coffee van, OG theme. So you're going to have the espresso martini. We're also going to have my personal favorite drink, which is, of course, just vodka and lemonade, which is going to be a little bit discounted price as well. Now, we can discount the price on these two cocktails, well, the vodka drink and the cocktail, because Cup Rum Distillery on Forest Ave so generously provided the vodka for this event, which meant that we could just get another local brand on board. We can keep it super cool, super fun. So we've got them providing the vodka. We also have Paper Out, who provided the espresso shots for the espresso martinis, which means that this is just a little fucking cool little local business fest. This happening on Sunday down at Lost Bills. So come down, have a look. I've also got a little black ink pop-up shop out the back where you can purchase all exclusive teas. I actually went on my live feed the other day on Jake Reckons, which is the Instagram for this podcast. It's not the actual black ink Instagram, it's the podcast Instagram. I call it Jake Reckons just to give it a different name from, Black Ink Podcast. I went live on there the other day and showed all the one-off exclusive tees. Now, there's 4 different designs. They're all printed either 3 or 4 times on various sizes. So if you're keen to get a one-off piece, make sure you get down there early to secure these, because I've got every man and his dog wanting these tees. I've also got jerseys. I've also got one-off tees of other things that I've screen printed, heat pressed. So it's going to be quite a selection. I think I'm taking down about 30 different pieces for sale. So definitely go down and have a look at that. What else have we got happening? Oh, we've got a full DJ set up, so it's going to be totally the right vibes. We've got people coming from Perth. It's going to be a hell of a night, but we also have a limited capacity of 75 people. So if you are going to come down, preferably come down sooner rather than later. And if you do have to wait outside for a little bit, because I can guarantee you it'll be worth it once you get inside and you start having fun. So now that I have that out of the way, I'd like to touch on a story that it's like a narrative, right, that I always go back to for one reason or another. And it's actually been confirmed by a book that I'm reading, which has made me think a whole lot about my ability of learning as an adult. So I want to break all this thought down, starting with the story. So the story starts with years and years and years ago. There was this family that lived, and they lived in this tiny house. It was appropriate for the time that they lived in. They had this tiny house and tiny kitchen, tiny bedrooms, and a tiny oven. And every Sunday they would cook up a roast for the family and enjoy the roast together as a family, sitting at their tiny table and tiny chairs. And because they lived in this little tiny house with this tiny oven, whenever they had a roast, and what they used to do is they would roast turkeys, right? So they would get this roast turkey and they'd measure it exactly the size of the oven, and then they'd chop the bum off, right? So that little bit of meat that you get on the back end of the chook, they'd just completely disregard it because we couldn't fit it in the oven. So we just went for the front, kind of 2/3 of the turkey, and they cook it, and they'd sit there and they'd enjoy the fuck out of it, right? And the next generation went on, and when that mother taught that daughter, I know, very sexist of me to pass on these, feminine roles to feminine roles, fucking sue me, okay? When she taught her, she said, what you got to do is you got to cut off the end of the turkey so that it fits in the oven. And the daughter's like, oh, yeah, of course, this makes sense, So as she grows up, she cuts off the end of the turkey so it can fit into the oven. And then she teaches her daughter or son. And then they go on to go, oh, yeah, we cut off the end of the turkey. And then they teach their kids. But the thing is, every generation they went down, they got a little bit bigger in everything. You know what I mean? It wasn't just because the family had more money. It's because, you know, humanity was evolving and moving forward. And we made bigger ovens. We made bigger tables. We had mass-produced things. You know, we were living in a beautiful age of humanity. And therefore, we were, you know, getting greater comforts as we went along. Consequently, the oven got bigger. But the tradition within the family to cut off the back of the turkey stayed the same, right? So it then became like a family thing that they cut off the end of the turkey. And it went on so many traditions that the family didn't even know why. Sorry, it went on so many generations, they didn't even know why. So at this point, the tradition was just based off narrative. Whereas at the start, it was based off reason. And that is a perfect example of how humans are so quick to attach a narrative to something and then let that narrative be the reason why they do what they do and the way they do it. It doesn't, sometimes like the reason that we attach to these things is purely just because we have an imagination, which I think, of course, is how we kind of separate ourselves from other animals. And when you give yourself this reason based on narrative, I feel like that puts you in a really fucking rocky boat in super deep waters. And as soon as you start to try and use logic, you're out in those waters by yourself. So it kind of begs the question, why do we have these narratives? And for me, I know that like from my experience, and I'm still debating the question whether I'm a unique individual or whether I'm just another human who's really like exploring the depths of like what's in my mind. And I don't mean that in like a philosophical way. I just mean like when I have spare time, I think about things, you know? So when I ask myself like, do I live by narratives? Am I always looking for narratives? And the answer is absolutely. And that makes me think, okay, so this thing that I've got that helps me, you know, be a businessman or be a good partner or be a good son or whatever it might be a good person, what are they based on? And when I boil that down to its finest point, and I don't really want to explain how I got there, I mean, you're either going to get it or you're not, okay? But for me, when I boil that down to its finest point, how do I get good at things in general? As a human applying myself to experiences and situations, how do I get the best possible version of myself back? And it all boils down to pattern recognition. It's all understanding that everything is just a system. And somewhere within that system, there are indicators, there are things that you can change, there are things that you can't change, and your job as a human within that situation or within that environment is to understand that system, to recognize the pattern of the system, and then best apply yourself to that so you can get the best result out of it. And that, in a way, is still putting a narrative around it, right? Because narrative doesn't necessarily mean that it's false. Narrative just means that it's a story, right? And in my mind, it's just a really fucking black and white nuts and bolts way of looking at a story is what a system is, right? So the story starts that you have to do this, this, and this, and then you apply yourself this way, and then you get this result. Well, it's a narrative, right? Now, I know I'm way out on the deep end on this, but stick with me, okay? So, as you may have already heard, I recorded a podcast earlier in the week and I thought about it so much. I've got so much shit going on in my life. I just wasn't comfortable posting it. It wasn't even that I said anything that I wasn't happy with, as far as like saying too much about things that I shouldn't talk about, which is generally the case. It was more, I just wasn't happy being that vulnerable. Like I really threw everything out there, and I think it was more of a therapy session for me than it was really an informative and valuable and interesting podcast for the audience. And so I kind of just kept it for myself. And that's why you've been seeing I've been posting these pod clips of a podcast that doesn't exist. That's the podcast. And now I don't know if I've told you particular things or if I haven't. But just in case I haven't told you this, I'm in the process at the moment of running this experiment of reading 2 books at once. So I read a chapter of one, then a chapter of another. And it kind of keeps me super interested in both books. Now, as reading as an adult is quite a new hobby for me. It's not something that I grew up doing. It's not something that I routinely or organically go to. It's something I have to force myself with discipline to do every day. I know that there's something boring about reading, and it's actually the fucking half an hour before you do it. Because as soon as you start reading and you give yourself to reading, you don't try and fight it, like you actually be there and be present with the book, it is super interesting. But then for me, reading 2 books keeps them interesting as they are then this and that. Like, I find that I have, and this and that isn't the right way to do it because it puts a weird connotation on the point that I'm trying to make. It's more like the having 2 situations to focus on allows me to focus on both of those situations better. Not at the same time, but individually. Like when I'm reading the second book, I'm like, oh yeah, this is this. I remember what this, yeah, okay, yep, cool. It's kind of like because you have something to, not paradox of each other, but almost like to bounce off each other, because one's like a self-help book and one's like a non-fiction, or it's Sapiens, that big thick book about like the history of humanity. So one's 4 Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss and one's Sapiens by Yuval Noah, I think it is. Yuval Noah Harari, it's by someone, right? It's a big thick book. So one of them's self-help and one of them's like the history of humanity. And I found that reading both of these at the same time has kind of allowed me to fucking like really absorb, especially what's in Sapiens. Because the first book, 4 Hour Workweek, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but let's say it's got, a fucking 150 words to a page. Well, the page is only, say, yay big. And then the words fill up about, 80% of the page. Well, Sapiens is like 5 times the thickness. It's a little bit shorter and a little bit wider, but the words fill up all of the fucking page. There's never any pictures, and there's like 300 words per page. So just the logical assessment of what it's going to take to finish this book, and also the reasonable assessment of like how much information I'm actually going to retain given my experience reading in general, because like I maybe read a dozen books, you know what I mean? That's a fucking drop in the ocean of what you could be doing as an adult reading, right? And people who read understand this, but people who don't read, like a dozen books, novels is nothing. And when you start getting into it, you can knock over a novel in a day, which is pretty crazy. But like I make it take, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. This Sapiens has taken like a month so far, and it's taken like probably 2.5 weeks, and I'm halfway through it because I am reading like a chapter a day. But super interesting to have that. Like, I've figured out for myself that that's really helped me get excited about reading. And it's like, helped me get excited, like, right, let's get this first another way. Like, I understand all this logic. Yep, cool. I see how I can apply that to my day. Super interesting. I see how that doesn't apply to my day. It's a very, like, systematic sort of fun read for me. And it's like, yep, cool. I can really skip through this. But then Sapiens is like, oh, put your seatbelt on, bitch, because we're going to be here for a minute. You know what I mean? Tie your hair up. This is what we're doing. Nothing else matters. And there's going to be some sentences that have like 4 words in there that you don't know what they mean. So it's like, this is like such a commitment to it. But it's funny because like I'm getting stoked during 4 Hour Workweek with the logic shit. And I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to see what I'm going to learn today, because that's the thing. I'm fucking learning now. I'm learning. I didn't piece this together until real recently. I'm learning more now as an adult, vocationally finding the things that I feel can benefit my life and interest me, and absorbing the fuck out of it than what I ever did at school. I didn't understand what was going on at school. I didn't understand the point, They were selling it as like, school is this thing that prepares you for your adult life. And it's like, okay, cool, but why are we learning with things that don't apply to things in the adult life? Like, why aren't we rehearsing the things that I see my parents do? Like, why are we not getting ready for that? Like, it didn't really make sense. And now that I built this whole, like, without sounding cocky about it, this lifestyle for myself, now it's like, how can I best apply myself to this lifestyle by increasing the knowledge that I have? And like, now that I've got a little bit of a taste of like, I read one book, it completely changed my fucking life. Like, everything that's happened around me, I can put down to one book. So now it's like, okay, I've got to be super careful about the book that I pick, and let it fucking soak in, and like really be there for the book. Give yourself to the book. And this is the thing, I feel like I was talking to a friend the other day who was explaining the difficulty that he has reading books. And he's like, I gloss over the lines, but I'm not taking any of the information in. And he kind of said it as if, it's him specifically. And look, he specifically might have fucking trouble reading, okay? Like, I don't know. I don't know everyone's specific thing, but I have heard that over and over, that people struggle to keep the information in their mind from sentence to sentence and build, structure and what the book is telling you. And then at the same time, kind of have your subconscious taking in the information and like mapping it out into your brain so it's understandable, and you can, what's the word? You not like soak it up. So it starts with N maybe. I'm thinking navigatable, but that's not the word. Anyway, gone. But I think the thing there is, like, even at 29, like, and I didn't grow up with iPads and computers, my generation didn't grow up reading books. Like, realistically, reading books kind of ended in, like, maybe year 9, year 8, right? Maybe. And you only kept reading books if you really, like, went for tertiary education. Otherwise, reading books went out the window. So, again, like so many things I make a point of, you actually have to exercise this muscle of reading. And, for, you know, an example that I used on my mate the other day when he was telling me, like, for the first good few months, I had to walking around outside, reading my book out loud to myself so that I could keep the information in. And some books I've read twice, and the second time I read it back twice, the second time I read it out to myself, and actually was like, oh fuck, this book has so much in it. You know, the lesson even there, and like, oh, I thought I read this book, and now I'm reading it again. It's giving me more information. It's like, okay, well, how much am I actually taking in of any book that I ever read? But also, to play devil's advocate, devil's advocate against devil's advocate, I'd rather be reading something and getting a little bit of that than reading fuck all and ending up with zero and just feeling that time was scrolling, you know? Like, there is some sort of magic behind reading. Anyway, the fucking point that I am fucking making right now, actually, I'm not even going to make that point yet. That thing behind reading 2 books at once, I feel is something that, like, I've learned about myself as far as, like, I work really well when I have a podcast on, or if I'm listening to The Office on Netflix while I'm trying to get my work done rather than just focusing on the work. It's like when I just focus on the work, I get so overwhelmed about the job that comes after the job and after that, and I start trying to pre-plan for all of those jobs that I don't actually get the thing in front of me done. And it's such a, I mean, I don't know how much I've elaborated on this because I definitely have a whole heap, but it's just such a weird thing that I'm trying to navigate at the moment. It really is. That's where that navigate popped in. See, I fucking tapped into the infinite universe. All good. But it's just such an interesting lifestyle to navigate because there is no real set rules. There is no real set system, and there's no boss. There's no one telling me, oh, that's not quite a good move. Like, everything kind of comes down to just making the right situation in the moment and trying to be the least amount of reactive as you can and, like, plan as properly as you can. But sometimes it just seems like, you know, when it rains, it pours. There's like 1,000 small jobs to do, or there's fucking 5 massive jobs to do. And it doesn't really matter which one of the situations it is. It's really difficult to just do the one first thing that actually makes the difference, that moves the needle. You know what I mean? The prep for the prep, whatever it may be. It's just like finding that and executing the fuck out of it. So a lot of this, staring into the sun and chewing on glass, as Elon Musk quotes, starting a company, a lot of it is just fucking trial and error of systems, creation, engagement, and then, like, experiment. Basically, like, okay, what happens if I wake up even earlier and I get this job, and this job done before the sun comes up? Okay, I did that for a month and I got really good results. But maybe this and this and this, like, I find myself not going to the gym, or I find myself needing to fall asleep earlier at night, or I need a nap in the middle of the day, or I need at least 2 mornings off if I'm going to do that. And then also applying that day in, day out to everything you do and run a business, run a business. I'm not looking for fucking, encouragement or sympathy or anything. It's just like, you know what it is? Like, I feel like I'm in the middle of something absolutely fucking amazing because the self-confidence and faith in myself that I have to have if I'm going to do what I'm going to do is so unquestionable. So I feel like, from the outside point of view, for people who get what my intention is and who are supporting me and who believe in me the same way I believe in me, this is like the boosters of the rocket have just powered up and started spitting out flames, and this spaceship is about to fucking break the ozone layer and go where no one's ever fucking gone before. Like, when I think about what I'm doing, there are other people that have gone out and done their own thing, and, what I've done in their own language and in their own fashion, in their own style, in their own taste. But I feel like I'm the first one doing anything like what I'm doing. I feel like sometimes I have to talk about how I'm feeling and what I'm doing and the decisions I'm making and how I get there. Sometimes purely just for me to look back on and go like, look at this young cunt just giving it hell. Look at him trying his absolute hardest. Pulling at straws and sticking with the ones that work. And then the other half of me is like, you know what? We all, like, in this situation, I don't want to claim that I'm doing something crazy or something special or something unique or individual, because there is something so human about, having integrity, which I really believe I do. There is something so, twisted in the idea of saying that you're actually doing something that's so different from other people and like maybe the beginnings of something huge. You don't want to say that. So 40% of my brain pulls away and says like, you don't need to talk about it so much. And the other 60% is like, that's actually the source of what the fuck is going on. Let's talk about that, because when it comes down to it, all the shit you're going to see me do in the future, it's not about like how I flossed. It's about how I thought about it. It's about which decision did I make and when, and how did that affect the results that came out of it. And that's what this podcast is. It's like the transparency behind the business. And it's not just the shirts, it's not just the burnouts, it's not just the bikes. It's like, hey, I've had like if you've listened to all the podcasts, you've seen me literally say like, I got no fucking money right now. Oh, sorry. I'm down to 10% power on my phone. And we are halfway through the podcast. That's brilliant. You've heard me say that I've got no money. You know what I mean? You've literally seen me living in a caravan, splutting around on this podcast, saying things that are absolutely ridiculous and pointless and have no context, and saying and you know what I mean, and swearing too much, up to a point where like now, honestly, this is the best I've ever been. This is me peaking. Like, this is the golden days. This is what's up. I love every fucking day that I wake up at the moment. And shit, even if it doesn't work, it was worth the fucking glow up. So forgive me if I ever seem egotistical. Forgive me if I ever come across as if I'm saying like, look at all this shit that I'm doing, but I'm genuinely excited, right? So back to the fucking show. The thing that I've got out of this idea of like, now that I'm a human and that I'm an adult and that I'm applying this vocational learning to the things that actually apply in my lifestyle, it makes me think, doesn't necessarily make me think, look, let me fucking crossroad this. The thing that I've learned recently out of Sapiens is that, and if you've read Sapiens, you'll know that this is quite a fucking topic within the book, right? The thing that I've learned recently in Sapiens is that from the beginning of basically, beginning of humanity, since humans kind of started being humans, there was a whole different bunch, there was all different sorts of humans, but basically of people that walked on their hind legs and acted the way humans do at the moment. Not at the moment, as we do as hunter-gatherers. Everything only started getting its shit together when we could believe in common narratives. It's when we could believe in common things that we all imagine but deem to be true, whether they be religion, whether it be money, whether it be the hierarchy of power, whether it be, racist beliefs. All of these things were it was the narrative that was the reason that we could actually progress, right? Because let me give you an example. The way that money works is that we all agree it has a particular value for whatever it is. Now, that originated in weights of gold and silver and bronze and different bits and pieces, even shells and whatnot. Now, the idea is that with, say this is actually I have a shell right here. How funny is that? But say this is a $5 note and you go, right, I want to go get a coffee. Cool, that's $5. I give the $5. You can then go spend that $5 on maybe a coffee for yourself, or maybe you can buy some shoelaces, or maybe you can buy some fuel for your car, or maybe you can buy, something else that's $5 fucking dollars. I don't know. The idea is the $5 is worth $5. Now, what happens if we don't have money? If we don't have some sort of currency, some sort of agreed narrative of value, right? Well, you make coffee and I make digital content, and he's got a cow and they've got a farm and they make leather goods. And so what we have to do is we actually have to come up with a currency for each of us, right? So I say to you, I want a coffee. And you say, well, I want a digital piece of content. And I say, well, that's worth 15 coffees. And you go, well, okay, cool. I'll give you 15 coffees I'll give you a coffee a day over the next 15 days. You give me a digital piece of content. We go, cool. And then the guy with the farm says, hey, I've got 400 loaves of bread. I want a coffee. And you go, well, it's probably worth, say, 2 loaves of bread. And he goes, yeah, okay, cool. So now you've got the bread currency, you've got the coffee currency, and you've got the content creator currency. Don't forget, you got to remember the cow currency. You've got to remember the leather currency. So this is how that narrative of money, the shared, agreed idea of what value in this particular thing is, whether it's a shell or plastic note or a coin, is the reason that we could progress. And then by having that shared idea of money, it then allows other problems to be solved. It gets the problem of like, right, how do we create seamless transactions between people regardless of their race, religion, their sex, their level in hierarchy of, of society? How do we get that trade element sorted? So once money came along, it's like, right, that's sorted. Now we can start improving other areas of life, whether it be, X, Y, and Z. And obviously I'm thinking on a very mass scale, but the whole point is, and I mean, even religion is all of this, right? It's narratives. And I don't want to break down that. I'm not saying religion isn't real. I'm saying that religion is narrative, right? So I'm all puffed. I'm fucking getting emotional about this, So I then think to myself, well, how does it work with the family that would cut the ass off their duck or their turkey? That narrative lasted. It lasted as a family tradition. And family traditions almost get taken more seriously than laws. Now, don't forget, laws are just narratives that we all agree about, okay? There is nothing like if I go and kill someone in secret, there is nothing the universe will do about it. If another human finds out, well, we have an agreement amongst ourselves that if you murder someone, well, you have to have a punishment for that. In today's day and age, that's going to jail. That's having your freedom taken away, okay? But at the base of it, it's still just a narrative that we're agreeing, okay? So with a family tradition, one that was based out of fucking reason and then turned into nonsense, because that's what it is. And we like to add this sentimental value to these traditions because it gives us something to belong to. Again, another narrative, like belonging to a sport team, like you're a West Coast Eagles fan, like the West Coast Eagles have any fucking idea who you are, okay? Again, a narrative. So you going away for Easter, every Easter you go camping with your family and rah, like that's super fun in your minds to you because you all belong to each other. Okay, and I'm not taking away from that. That is as valid as ever. It's as valid as you consider it real, right? But to be logical about it, it is just a narrative that we are all agreeing. That's what makes it fun, okay? And also, the way I'm talking, it's very fucking nihilist and pulls the ass out of everything because then you can logically break down the sources and reasons of all things good in this life and say, well, it's actually just oxytocin coursing through your brain, which is created in the stuff. Like, no one fucking cares about the real basis of everything. But I just like to understand what the fuck we're doing as humans, because then it gives me more like validity in my life. It makes me feel like I'm actually not taking advantage of it, making the most of this experience that we get as humans that's only lasts like 80 years, And the younger you are, the more you get out of it. So if you wait to get the good shit out of it until you're old, you're not going to have the fucking energy to do so and wish you had done it when you were younger. So let's fucking work it out, right? So I asked myself, if that family handed down that bullshit tradition, generation to generation to generation, it didn't start as bullshit, but it ended as bullshit, then what bullshit am I living by? No, I'm not talking about family traditions. I'm talking about societal things, right? I'm talking about freedom of mind. How much of that is lost because of a societal norm that was created how long ago, by who, for what reason, and why does it still last? Sapiens talks about the normality of homosexuality, in particular, societies and cultures as it goes through time. And then for whatever reason, in other cultures, it's like demonized, right? And whether this falls into the religion side of things or it literally is just a cultural thing. I mean, culture is literally the generation of ideas and narratives in a group of people. That's how cultures are generated, And I mean, I've had a weird experience as far as how much I've lived and how I've lived, and going from different groups of people all the time, whether it be moving when I was a youngster or in different sports, and then within one sport doing heaps of different travel and competitions and different communicating with different people. And then as an adult electing to continue to travel and see things and do things that scared me, which kind of made me appreciate like, oh, there's all these different sorts of ways of living and not sorts of people, but different lifestyles that people choose to live, and different lifestyles that people are bound within because of their culture. And then it makes me so easily see here, like you can literally walk from one end of this town to the other end of this town. People are speaking the same language, but in different dialects. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to make this a racist thing, but I definitely know what accent you can expect to hear in Dalyallup, or what accent you can expect to hear in Pelican Point, what accent you can expect to hear in fucking Australind, in Treendale. And like, yeah, they're rash generalizations, but it's just showing, like, for example, the current situation we're in is we're seeing this blend of cultures because we're now on the arse end of, like, transportation becoming available to the masses and people being able to move their family from continent to continent in search of a better life or a different life, whatever it may be. So it's so easy to see around me that cultures, like, I am building a culture within Black Ink. I'm building a culture within my followers. One of the things I feel like I'm doing with Black Ink on my Instagram is I create a bar of, like, steez or coolness or aesthetic or whatever it might be. And I'm setting the bar. I don't give a fuck about anyone else's bar, but I'm saying this is what I consider to be cool. And then I let people know when they reach that bar. That's something that I focus on, right? Because if I'm the fucking person who says what's cool and what isn't cool, then little secret, guys, that makes me, let me go again. Little secret, guys, that makes me the guy who makes the cool shit. And then people buy the cool shit and then I make the money, right? So that's how that works. So culture and humans living within culture and the fact that it takes narratives for culture to work and it also takes narratives for humans to work together. Wow. So many questions now. So many fucking questions. But I'm excited that I'm learning as an adult. I'm excited that, like, I'm getting excited about this shit as well. I never thought I'd be a 29-year-old dude covered in tattoos, smoking weed all the time, saying, like, man, you know what I'm really looking forward to is reading my book later on. Like, dude, who the fuck are you? What's going on? I tell you what, business check-in time. I've had 3 very exciting things happen within my business. Let me share them with you right now. So I had a very kind gentleman call me from, actually he sent me a cold email saying, hey mate, I'm such and such's cousin. Like I heard of you before. Just wondering if you'd be able to apply some stickers to some vehicles for me. So I emailed him back. I'm like, hey, I appreciate your consideration. I would definitely consider doing this. Please provide any and all information, pictures and so forth so I can kind of figure out what I'm dealing with here. So he messaged back. He said, look, we're in Perth. We've got a little fleet down south. What we need is this cement truck and these 2.5 meter decals applied to the actual cement mixer itself. Just let me know how much it's going to cost and rah, rah, rah. So, not a fucking hope in hell. So I looked at it and I thought about it for a couple of days. I emailed back and said, look, I really appreciate your consideration. I do, but this is out of my wheelhouse. And with the added element of, a height risk and I don't really have a yard to do this in and I don't want to be taking unnecessary risk in your yard either. Thank you, but no thank you. And I didn't hear back from him. And I got this call from this number and I've gone from answering fucking absolutely no calls on my phone because as everyone knows, scams are just going through the fucking roof at the moment. So I try not to answer any calls unless they look kind of semi-legit. And this one was just a phone number and it called me and I thought to myself, like, nah, it's a fucking scam because, they're getting better. Dickhead. So I called the number back probably a couple hours later and then dude didn't answer, went to his voicemail. It was homeboy that's been emailing me. So I'm like, fuck. He calls me back. He's like, man, fuck that other idea. What we've got is this particular project coming up now for the sake of discrepancy of the client. I don't want to be giving away what project it is, but if you're a Bunbury resident, you definitely know all about it. And it's going to require basically a few stages of, hundreds of blokes coming in and doing their little bit. And each bloke, or each employee, I should say, because, diversity, women can lay, almost fucked it up then. Anyway, so it said each staff member needs at least 4 uniforms, and we just want to know if you would be able to provide these uniforms, whether they're embroidered or screen printed or heat pressed, whatever it might be. And I was like, yeah, fucking absolutely. So, I kind of gave it away with a cement truck thing, didn't I? Anyway, if you've got 2 brain cells to rub together, you'll be able to figure out exactly what I'm talking about. But basically what I'm saying is I have now had another phone call that has been, like a possible job that's in the tens of thousands of dollars, which is fucking bananas. The first time that kind of happened for Black Ink, when I came home and I quoted something up, and like what I'm saying is tens of thousands of dollars isn't net, it's gross, right? So, I think the first job that I quoted was like $17,500, and I looked at the end number and I was like, well, that can't be right. and you go back and you add everything up and you're like, it's 17,500. I'm sending out a $17,500 quote, right? And I mean, long story short about that is a yes, but it's one of those jobs that takes so long that it just takes so long, And then the second time it happened, I sent out a quote for $22,500 with a $7,500 profit margin in it, which, not giving away too much of my business, but I think it's fair to say that that's an exciting day. That's sending out a quote for a job that's so big, it'll take 2 people maybe a week to do. That's insane. That's fucking insane. And also worth it, worth it. Because when I'm saying worth it, for all the fucking energy that I put into it, for all the times you feel like you're doing shit that doesn't move the needle, and then you get a call saying, hey, seen all the work you've been doing, is this something you can do? Yeah, sure. Hey, just send me up a quick quote. It's these garments, this numbers, let me know what it looks like. Right. You send back the quote, $22,500, and they send back without even stuttering, let's go, Crazy. Now again, jobs that big, let me give you the inside tip. If you're getting into the market that I'm getting into to make quick money, that job won't come in for fucking 6 months, So, whatever. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is this phone call, this email exchange and phone call that I had was just a beautiful, another kind of notch on the belt for Black Ink of even if I don't get this job, they're the conversations that I'm having now. And they're conversations that, sure, if I thought I was going to start some sort of production facility, some sort of studio just for that, they're calls that I thought would have come about middle of the year when people start to get to know you and you know more, business to business relationships, and people get to know you through sideways interactions rather than face to face. That would make sense. But this just seems to be a fucking common thing now. People are just reaching out all the time and saying okay, anything from can you do 2 shirts for me to this job is 250 times 3, 750 times 4 is 714 is 3,000 shirts. 3,000 shirts. 3,000 shirts. Are you fucking kidding me? What's going on, right? So, super happy with how I held myself and how I communicated. Super happy with how I delivered the information. Something that I've really struggled to do is if you ask me how much your shirt is, my voice always breaks as I say $60, And now when I say it, motherfucker, it's 60. You know why? Because that's what it's worth. And it doesn't come down to, you get those fuckboys that are oh, look at this shirt. It's a fucking $3 shirt with a fucking screen print on it. That's only worth $3 or $4. Look at this. I could get that shirt if I had the design made for $15. Yeah, you know what? Do it. Fucking do it. Because you're right. It doesn't cost me $60 to make a shirt. It costs you $60 to fucking wear it. It costs you $60 to look cool wearing that shirt. That's what's up. You're not paying for the parts. You're paying for the passion. You understand? That's why it's $60. And damn, that's a good outtake for Instagram. You see that? I was in the fucking moment just then. Woo! Anyway. I got so into that. I fucking forgot what I was talking about. Making the shirt. Nah, I got too deep in the sauce just then, dude. Fucking crazy. But yeah. Oh, never when I thought I'd have a fucking production house. But yeah, just super fun to be having these conversations and super fun. Oh, the third thing so I communicated well. I told the price well. And also the fact that now I'm going to follow that up. And if the person who offered this, mate, if you're watching this, I'm sorry to offer you complete transparency, but this is, as I mentioned, it's for complete transparency. I'm now going to go and meet this person up in Perth around knock-off time and go and have a beer with him in his office, even if it is for half an hour, because that potential relationship could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. So, how fun is business, Anyway, the second thing that's very interesting that's been happening in my business just recently is I got contacted by a charity that has... I didn't quite understand the scale of this company, I guess you would call it, non-for-profit, whatever it is. I just kind of, when people call up and they ask for information, for me, as I've mentioned before, it's more of a common thing now that people will call up and say, how much for this, how much for that? This bloke reached out and just said, we kind of want to get this and this made. We've had this experience, hasn't been so great. We're looking to completely outsource our, because they already outsourced their garment creation, but they want to bring it into Bunbury. And one of the people who's on the board is actually in the Bunbury. The person who's controlling the garment creation is in Bunbury. So it was kind of a nice organic fit that they found out through Sabotage in Bunbury, which Megan, I'd like to thank you for recommending me. Obviously, it's easy when you've got a product that's in front of you, like this is black ink, this is his screen printing, this is his heat pressing, he's in Bunbury, you can literally meet him face to face, here's his contact information, and boom, he contacted me. So basically, super exciting opportunity. Again, we're talking telephone numbers, we're talking 4 or 5 different garments, we're talking hundreds of each in women's and men's, and just a fucking list of ambassadors that would absolutely blow your hair back. So I'm super excited, not just to be getting the job for financial reasons, but just to be like, working with really fun and interesting clients. And I think one thing that I do I'm getting to a stage now where I think honestly I've knocked back in my whole production history in the past 6 months, I think it would be roughly. I've only really knocked back 2 jobs. Like one of them I took on board and I just, after 3 weeks of doing nothing, I'm like, I can't fucking do this for you. I'm sorry. I'm out. And another job was so... I could pick it from the start. They were just going to fuck me around. You know what I mean? Like some people are just more interested in asking questions than they are in executing a job. And all good if you're going to go do that, but go talk to someone who's not trying to scale their business, because for me, sure, you're a great customer, but at the end of the day, the actual time that I lose on by having these conversations that go nowhere, I can't be getting paid from another job. So you're costing me more money. So that was more of a, logical decision for me at the time, which I don't know. For some reason, I feel kind of guilty even admitting that I did that because you think you're better than any one job. But at another time, you also have to exercise the ability of being a good decision maker. And that is as important a decision as ever. What do I value more, my time or the customer? And, if that customer goes away and even then, I was very polite about it. I just said, fuck off, so, but yeah, it's cool to be now working with this particular charity is going to be cool. Working with that business I was talking about just before, very cool. And also the businesses that have got on board just recently. So I'm now working with another 3 local businesses. And I would like to make this official announcement. I have decided to, for the sake of the client, remain completely anonymous whenever I'm helping these businesses out. Now, when it comes to apparel creation, obviously in the long run, if you go and buy something from one of these places, most of the time you're going to find a black ink tag on the inside of the garment, which means obviously that I made it. It's a little bit of marketing for me. It's a little bit of a conversation starter for you, the person you bought it off, maybe next time you see me, whatever it is. I don't really have any interest in saying what I'm doing before I'm doing it. As you know, if you listen to my podcast, if you're a fan of me in general, or black ink, I should say. So I think from now on, the only things that I'm going to share about the other businesses that I'm working with is going to be when I'm actually creating the product. I'll make reels and content that are possible for both of us to share and to collaborate on and to use as marketing material. But otherwise, just I'm working with so many businesses now that, just the interpersonal fucking problems some of these businesses have with each other. And I don't want to be seen as I just don't want to be seen in the business war of Bunbury. I was talking to a close friend yesterday about this who is also a Bunbury businessman. And, we basically came to a very similar conclusion that there's just not enough time in this life to have some faux problem with a business that's in the same industry as you. You know what I mean? We do our fucking burgers better. Who fucking cares? You know what I mean? If you've got restaurant A and restaurant B in the same town, you tell me which situation is better. When these cunts go head to head and we've got our crew and we've got this crew, or when everyone goes, yeah, we go to this place for breakfast or this place for lunch and this place for dinner. And then they actually rotate their menus and rotate their prices. So then the other half of the year, we go this place for lunch and this place for dinner. Now, if you 2 dickheads put your brains together, you'd be able to make the second situation work and then benefit off both of the pubs. You know what I mean? Instead of man, the only time you want to have some sort of conflict is an online conflict so that people can you can build your Instagram pages. Because most of the time, even with conflict, people will follow both pages just to see what both pages are doing. You know what I mean? So having this head-to-head bullshit is crazy. And to be quite honest, as you know, as I've said in this podcast, this shit's going to go fucking bananas. Black ink is going to keep growing and growing. And I don't want to be anyone's fucking enemy. I've gone through so many, not gone through, but I've been involved with so many social circles and groups of people that I've done fairly well to not really gain too many serious enemies. I hope not. And I continue to keep doing that. So I think an important step that I can take right now is to keep things sexy. The people that are working with me are the people that are working with me. For the people who want to fucking, show that they're working with Black Ink or be a part of it, and a lot of stuff that is on trend, I do push that. Of course, I'm gonna help that as much as I can, but I think the smart move moving forward is just saying that I've got people working with me. But the cool thing is, as part of my goal this month was to get 3 new businesses on board, and I pretty much had 3 conversations in the first week. We're the 3rd week into the month, and now those 3 conversations have turned into people that are actually working with me. And to be very honest with you, I'm probably at capacity. I'm probably at the point where if I took on any more shit, like any more serious numbers, I think the organic progression of the clients that I have on a repeatable basis, they're only going to get greater and greater. So I don't want to be filling up too many empty spots now and not being able to service those customers properly. I'd be much more interested in taking that little bit of spare time I have now and creating a system, whether it's implementing a staff member or it's automating some part of my process, some part of my business, which allows more time, and then maybe even filling that with a different arm of what Black Ink could possibly be doing. I mean, a good example is this is being recorded on Friday morning at fucking something o'clock in the morning, like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, because the one that I recorded on Sunday afternoon wasn't any good. And now this is the first opportunity that I've had to record a podcast. Now I want to get this edited and put up today, because obviously the people who follow my podcast are like, well, looks like Jake's dropped the ball, hey? No, I didn't get a podcast up this week. Motherfucker, watch what I did now, But got aggressive at the end there, didn't I? But yeah. Oh, it's so fun. I'm having so much fun just running a business. You know what I mean? Like, I talk to my mum about this all the time. Like, I was fucking made to do this. I wasn't made to have a job. Like, I still get, like, I walk around the house sometimes. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I fucking doing? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I'm like, I get too chill about the fact that I can make decisions for myself and that I can give myself a break. Like, you'd be walking around, I'm just not fucking being productive right now. Go ride the motorbike, bro. You probably feel heaps better after riding the motorbike. Yeah, but I can't do that. Why not? You're going to stay here and keep getting shit results, which if you were working for someone, is fine. Fuck them. Spend their money. Get paid, right? And I mean that is in like taking a wage. Because if you've got a job, you sit at work on a fucking Thursday afternoon with your dick in your hand going like, oh, I can't wait until 5 o'clock. Maybe if I go and do that over there, that's an hour job, but I can make that take 2.5 hours plus smoko plus clean up. That's 5 o'clock. Sweet. I'm going to go take a shit before I start any of that. Hey, I'm not mad at you. That was me. I was there. I get that. You know what? I'm fucking excited now because I'm like, oh, I don't, a dick in my hand. I feel like shit, I have the freedom to jump on my bike. Go get some vitamin D. Go do some burnouts, man. Be gone for an hour. It doesn't matter. But when you come back, get back to work and prove yourself right that will make you feel better. Have that integrity with yourself. Have that discipline with yourself. But anyway, the third cool thing that's happened in my dude, I've fucking gone over time. I'm sorry, I did want to tell you all 3, but hey, such is life. This is the way things go. Anyway, do 2 things for me. Be good to your mum, and I'm fucking out. Yo!